Get one thing straight. Money loves brass balls. Michael McLean, brassballsvideos.com. You can download a free copy of my brand new book, 5 Ways to Unfuck Your Life in the Next Month. It's a free download. The link is below. Simple 22-page book, nothing else to buy. Print it off, read it on your screen, whatever you want. Share it with other people. Link is below. brassballsvideos.com. 5 ways to unfuck your life in the next month. Just out here in Naples with my daughter at a weekend equestrian show. I don't really know jack shit about horses. It's one of the sports that's really not my sport, but I do know this about horses from being in this game with my daughter for the last 4 or 5 years. Little girls love ponies and horses eat while we sleep. Very expensive sport, but it's totally worth it for the lessons. This equestrian horseback riding has been an amazing teaching vehicle for our daughter, because my wife Krista and I are some of the only parents that use it to teach life skills. Like, I don't give a shit about the sport, and I don't really care about, the results in competitions like this, because it's a judge sport. It's like figure skating. It's a judge sport. So there's a lot of politics in equestrian. That's just a fact of life. But it's great for kids if you use it as a teaching vehicle. And that's what we've done over the last handful of years. I prefer sports where you have to run over a line to score a touchdown. You got to put a ball in a bucket. You got to put a puck in a net. That's my type of sport where the athlete or the team is in control of winning or losing. But nonetheless, we've used this as a opportunity for her to learn that actually riding like she is this morning is about 5% of the sport. Most of these cupcake parents are raising snowflake kids, like I always say, and they don't use sport as an opportunity to teach grit, stick-to-itiveness, mental toughness, the difference between winning and losing. They don't use it to teach their children. What's the point? Most of these kids aren't going to be paid. They're not going to make any money out of sport. They're not going to be a pro coach, a minor pro coach like I was. They're not going to make it their life's work. So what's the teaching point? And these cupcake parents that are raising snowflake kids in every sport, I see it every day in skating. I see it every day in ice hockey. I see it every day in horseback riding. They literally drop their child off. The child gets on the horse, does their lesson, gets off the horse, and that's it. That's the sweetheart part of the sport. And like I said, I don't know jack shit about this sport, but I've learned a lot in the last 4 to 5 years. And one of the things that I've learned is this can be a blue collar experience for a kid. This can put some dirt under their fingernails if you're a parent who demands that they do the whole thing. So my daughter, as an example, she doesn't get dropped off at her lesson. When my wife or myself take her to one of her 2 weekly lessons, whether it's here in Southwest Florida or whether it's in Canada, she's shoveling shit. She's shoveling shit in stalls. She's doing that, like she's painting fences. She's doing all the things that you have to do if you were running a farm. And I think that's one of the most amazing experiences for a child, because we're not farmers. She's not going to be exposed to that normally. But I love when she has a rake in her hand. I love when she has a shovel in her hand. I love when she has to wash the horses in the You know, she's doing this in the Canadian cold. She's doing it in the Florida heat. And she's learning that what she's doing right now is 5%, maybe 5%. You know, anybody can get up on the back of the horse and put on their nice outfit and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, what this teaches her is that the grit, the hard work, the difficult stuff is 95%. I mean, this here, we drive out here, she competes in a few competitions today. She may win, she may lose, and that's always valuable. But it's all the other stuff she has to do in private. Like the late, great Stephen Covey said, private victories precede public victories. In other words, you better do the consistent hard work for years and years and years, for years and years and years in the dark, in private, when nobody's cheering you on, when nobody's giving you attaboys, so that you can have a chance to win in public. And it still only gives you a chance to win. And champions know that. They know that it's 99-1 or it's 95-5 like this. But I'll tell you right now, I have an agreement with my daughter, and it's like, I'll pay for this. I'll pay for the lessons. I'll pay for the competitions. We'll lease a pony, but you need to do all the work that comes with it. All the work that comes with it. And a good example was back there, like she had to be up this morning at a little after 5 a.m., which is great. She's an early bird, but that's early for her. And she had to be all organized the night before. She had to hand polish her black boots. She had to hand polish her helmet. She had to iron and press the dress shirt that they use, the jacket. Everything had to be perfect before bed. And that's what I teach in terms of, if you want to get up and walk, you want to drink water, you want to read, you want to write, tomorrow starts today. So her tomorrow was last night. Everything was laid out, water bottles, her lunch was made, it was put in the fridge. Winning starts today for tomorrow. So that's another thing that these competitions will teach these young people, if parents will use them as a vehicle to teach values and principles and habits. So she gets up this morning, there's no bullshit, none of this going around in the dark trying to find your boots and trying to find your bag and trying to find your helmet. It's all ready to go. And she's responsible for all of it. I had a rule in hockey, I don't carry bags. As soon as my daughter was 5 years old, she was carrying her hockey bag. That's a big, heavy bag. But we have a rule in the McLean household. My dad had it. Hey, I'll pay for it, but I don't carry bags. My hockey players, I had a rule. I don't carry. I'd see some of my players when we drafted them, 16, 17 years old. And right hand to God, you know, the first training camp they walk in, their mom or dad's carrying their hockey bag. Same thing in football, same thing in baseball. It happens in every sport. Cupcakes, raising snowflakes. And the first order of business, because I was in the life coaching business, I wasn't in the hockey business. I was in the life coaching business. If you talk to my business partner, Marc-Andre LeBlanc, 70% of everything that came out of my mouth when you played for me for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, was about life. Was about entrepreneurship, was about punctuality, was about discipline, it was about marketing, it was about money, it was about relationships, it was about being a better person, it was about serving other people. 30% was about the game. 30% was about the sport of hockey. It was almost all about life lessons. And once again, these kids aren't going anywhere. 1 in 100,000 players, hockey players in Canada, eventually play for money. 1 in 100,000. So I tell these parents to screw it on straight. You would know by the time your kid's 8, 9, or 10 whether they're special. Almost nobody's special. Almost nobody's gifted. And genius is as common as dirt. So, you know, like Sidney Crosby's parents knew when he was 6, 7 years old. Wayne Gretzky's dad knew when he was 5, 6, 7 years old. It's the same with anybody that plays in the NFL. You know, Patrick Mahomes, you can tell if you have something special on your hands by the time these kids are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's about life coaching for me. I've coached for 21 years, minor, pro, amateur, age 5 all the way to age 40. And I've always used it for life coaching. Like I always used to start, like I'm going to teach these guys about hockey, and we're going to be the best coach team. And then as I matured, I realized the more life coaching that I taught, the more principles, dress code, punctuality, how you speak to yourself, all the stuff I talk about on this show, we started winning more hockey games. We started winning more hockey games when we won the first Barclay Cup in 2019. That admittedly was the year that I never shut my mouth the whole year about doing things the right way, about the way you dress, about the way you speak, an attitude of gratitude, how you present yourself, the dangers of social media, taking the cell phones away, getting yourself in the best physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual shape of your life. This is the stuff that vehicle of hockey allowed me to teach those young men. And now those young men are in their early 20s. They're buying their first home. Some of them are getting married. Some of them are thinking about having families. And what do you think is going to serve them better? What I taught them in hockey or what I taught them in terms of life experience? Here's what worked for me. Here's what didn't work for me. Here's the mistakes I made when I was your age. And the reason it's so effective as a coach is because at that age, and you know this if you have teenagers or young children that are young adults, they've stopped listening to you. Do you know how many parents I've had come up to me at the end of the year at the awards banquet and simply said, Coach, I've got to thank you for changing the direction of my son's life. And the reason isn't because I did anything special. It's because they said stop listening to their parents' voice, which is very normal. And I was a strong leadership. I had them. If they wanted to play hockey, they had to play it my way. So I had the hammer and they were the nail. And I wasn't afraid to use it to make them a better person. And if a player wasn't punctual or a player wasn't dressed properly, if a player wasn't rested and prepared, or if a player was undisciplined or emotionally drunk, I would punish them. I'd hold them accountable. They wouldn't play as much. In some cases, I would get rid of them. But I taught them that life is difficult, life is hard, and it's supposed to be. And then these guys, like, I just see the successes that some of these young men that we've coached over the last 2 decades have turned out. And I'm so proud of the fathers they've become, the husbands they've become, the community leaders. These guys are coaching their own kids now. And they're using the same drills, and they're giving the same speeches, and they're talking about the same values and principles and mission. And that eventually, besides my own family, will be my legacy. So we use horsing for the same thing. I don't carry bags. She just set up her stall here. She had to make multiple trips to back and forth from the truck. But for me, it's about what can the sport teach the student? What can the sport teach the student? And like I said, this has been over these last few years, I wrote an article one time titled, well, there's no tears. There's no tears in sport. If there's any tears in sport, I always say, Michael Jordan crying on the floor after he won his first NBA title. He cried when he won. And then Jordan cried when he won his third in a row. Then Jordan cried when he won it. Like, that's different. If you're going to shed some tears in sports, what's the old saying? There's no crying in baseball. The only crying in sport is when you win. And a few years ago, I wrote an article in my newsletter, my Michael McLean World Building letter, and I talked about my daughter being so upset at an equestrian event. She was much younger, and she didn't get the results she wants. She got her ass kicked, and the judges were right. She deserved to finish second and fourth, and she was crying behind the barn, which is very uncommon for my kid. She's not a whiner, she's not a complainer, and she doesn't cry. And she was crying behind the barn, and eventually I had a conversation with her, and she realized eventually that she was crying because she didn't do what? She didn't put in the work, she didn't put in the practice, she didn't put in the focus that week and the week before, so she didn't earn victory. She didn't deserve to win. When you don't put in the reps every day, when you're not violently consistent, when you can't show up in any area of your life, winning leaves town. How simple is that? Okay? Winning only hangs around violent consistency. It compounds. But winning is a fickle thing. And winning only wants, it's like money. It only wants to be around places where it's respected, where it's appreciated, and where it's honored. So if a person is cutting corners or looking for hacks or looking for shortcuts, winning just leaves town. That's what Tim Grover always said. You know, these athletes in the NBA and the NFL and the NHL and Major League Baseball, all of a sudden they're making, $10 million, $20 million, $30 million a season. And then all of a sudden they have all these other things. They got podcasts and they got social media followings, and they're doing speeches and they're doing advertisements and they're doing all these different things that takes focus away from what? It takes focus away from the one thing that brought them to the dance. That one thing for Michael Jordan was basketball, and that always remained the number one thing. I just rewatched that documentary, The Last Dance, for the third time. That's the documentary on Michael Jordan. It came out during the lockdowns. I've watched it 3 times. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. Watch it and really study what it takes to be the best in the world at something. And Jordan, last night I was watching a little bit of it, and he just talked about the pull of society, the pull of people, the pull of teammates, the pull of his agent, the pull of everybody in the world that wants a piece of him. They're pulling him. They're crabs in the bucket, right? Pull you back down, pull you back down. And he constantly had to fight these crabs in the bucket that were pulling him away from what? The number one thing, which was basketball. And he was, what made him the GOAT, the greatest of all time, it's not even in a conversation, is that he had more focus, more self-discipline than anybody else. He would not be pulled away from the one thing. And having a personal coach like Tim Grover, that was a major, major investment, because he would just keep bringing Michael back to the one thing, back to the one thing. This is how we need to train. This is how we need to eat. This is how we need to sleep. Back to the one thing. Do you really need to be doing that commercial for McDonald's? Do you really need to be doing that commercial for Nike? You're already making tens of millions of dollars. So Grover kept bringing him back to the one thing, bringing him back to the one thing. And if you compare that to other athletes, all of a sudden the number one thing is no longer the priority. And like Grover always said, when the number one thing is no longer the number one thing, the rest of the stuff goes away. You want to fix your reputation, win. You want to have all this extra stuff like endorsements and podcasts and stuff. You better fucking win. You better win. Nothing repairs an athlete's reputation more than winning. But when Father Time, who's undefeated, takes over, or these guys lose focus, they literally cut years off of their career because they forgot the thing that brought them to the dance. Michael Jordan never forgot the one thing. Basketball was always his number one priority. And the second he woke up and he didn't have the absolute hunger to win another championship, he stopped playing. He had that level of integrity. Nobody had to pull the jersey off his back. Nobody had to pull him aside and say, you know, it's time. He knew it was time. And he wanted to go out on top, and he did go out on top. But there's so many things that sport can teach us. And, you know, equestrian events like this, it just shows you like you can raise a snowflake, or you can raise a champion. You can raise an entitled person, a selfish person, or you can use sport to teach work ethic, to teach teamwork, to teach all of these things, grit and some courage and some guts. And that's all we're trying to do with sport with our daughter. So it's amazing. Like when you have that brass balls attitude, winning is attracted. Winning is attracted. When I was driving Emery here this morning, I said, you know, we've been watching some of the basketball and we've been watching some of the NHL playoffs. And when we watch a few minutes, and that's all we watch, I always make a note to my wife and to her and to Emery. I always say, do you see the difference between these two teams playing in this playoff series? Doesn't matter what sport it is. And they'll think about it, and I'll say, okay, do you see how this team is playing to win? And then I said, what's the other team doing that's struggling? Well, they're playing not to lose. And I said, you see the critical difference between swinging for the fences, going all in, and, you know, like burning the ships, balls to the wall. And you can see it right there on the TV screen. And brass balls and courage and playing to win and playing offense, not defense, is magnetic to money. It's magnetic to winning. It's magnetic to success. I don't care whether it's sending an email every day, sending a video every day, doing a monthly print newsletter, doing a podcast every week, whether it's doing 50 cold calls on the phone. Yes, cold calls on the phone. The more courage you show, the more you swing for the fences, the more you have only a plan B, a plan A. Money is attracted to guts. Money and prosperity is attracted. Even good luck, good fortune is attracted to brass balls. So when we were driving here, I said to my daughter, we're talking about, you know, it's a judge sport. And I said, you know, you can give them two types of energy. You can give those judges two types of energy. When you ride by the judges and you're entering the ring, I said, the way you're breathing, the way you're smiling, the way your body language, everything about you, 85% of it's nonverbal. I said, literally, a judge will feel that energy. This is a rider who's playing to win. This is a rider who's all in. This is a rider who's swinging for the fences. Or you can go by, a person can enter the ring. They can be shrinking. They can have poor body language. They can have shallow breathing. They can be nervous. These things are all a choice. They're a choice as athletes, as entrepreneurs, as husbands, as fathers. We choose our mindset. We choose our body language. We choose our energy. And we choose whether we're magnetic to money and success. If you want to be magnetic to money, to good fortune, if you want to be magnetic to abundance, to winning, then you have to control these types of things. It starts with the movie playing in your head, your body language, your breathing, the smile on your face, poised, confident, certain, that kind of stuff. And body language and things like that are magnetic either way. They're magnetic to scarcity and losing, or they make you magnetic to winning and abundance. So I got a little off track there. I got to go back and watch this first event, but it's using sport is massive, and just understanding that, you know, keeping the main thing, and teaching these kids and your grandkids that, you know, this is the 95% of the sport that really matters, because nobody sees this. This is the private victory that has to happen. The 10,000 hours, the 20,000 hours, that's what's really critical. And that in itself is what gives you a chance to win. Nobody sees the massive, violent consistency of a champion. Nobody sees, you know, the players shooting hoops at 3 a.m. in the gymnasium. Nobody sees the guy in the gym or walking at 5 a.m. or you know, sticking to a high protein diet or copywriting for half an hour a day. But that's what it takes to get the job done. You can download a free copy of my book, like I said, 5 ways to unfuck your life in the next 30 days. Who the hell doesn't need to unfuck their life from time to time? It's life is hard, life is difficult. We all get off track. There's no such thing as no chance. There's no such thing as not turning things around. You just kick at that darkness till it bleeds daylight. And this 22-page book will really set your mind straight. You do 2 or 3 of these 5 things and you can transform your life in the next month quite simply. You can print it off, you can share it, you can do whatever. I'll email it to you within 5 minutes. You just go to the link below, brassballsvideos.com. Go to the link below and I'll put in your email. I'm an email guy. I'll email you a digital copy of the book in the next 5 minutes. And you can share it with other people. There's nothing else to buy. It's my free gift to you for subscribing and watching this righteous show. So that's it today. That's our daily mental kick in the pants. We all need a mental kick in the pants every day, and hopefully you found some value in this particular swift kick in the pants this morning. Children are a gift. Children are a gift from above. I've learned that over the last 11 years. The greatest blessing in my life is that little girl on that horse. It has made me a better husband, a better man, a better leader, a better entrepreneur, a better human being. And children are a gift. It's not easy being a husband. It's not easy being a father. Marriage is hard. Being a father is hard, but it's absolutely the most worthwhile thing, the most rewarding thing, the most challenging thing, and the most important thing I've ever done in my life. 2 words that changed my life, 2 words that can change yours. Be relentless.